Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing abrupt climate change. And I apologize, I think some of you, a lot more viewers have been commenting that there is some noise problems with the videos. I'm not doing anything differently, so unless my computer is, degrading, getting old, and it's an equipment problem, I don't know. I don't hear anything on any of my videos, so I can't tell you that I hear it and I don't know what to do to adjust for it. The other theory is that I've noticed when I'm watching other videos that YouTube doesn't necessarily want people to watch, that they are having a lot of technical difficulties, a lot of sound difficulties. So if this is something that's been happening in my recent videos, it could be that somehow YouTube is messing with the sound a little bit to make it unenjoyable to watch my videos. I don't know. Maybe, that's my paranoid conspiracy take on it. Who knows what's happening? But if I could actually hear what's happening, then maybe I could do something about it, but I can't really. I don't know what to do to adjust for it, honestly. And other than use another microphone, and I'm not really equipped yet to set that up, but maybe I will in the future. In the meantime, I apologize for any noise problems. Just going to jump right into a few things. This video will not be very long because it is late at night. Children are asleep. Elderly are asleep. So I'm not going to ramble on for too long. And I'm going to just kind of cover a few things I wanted to read. I wanted to read this comment because it was an interesting comment, and quite a few of you already read it and commented on this, but this is from PEH96. Number 1, global commerce has already collapsed. Commerce is the engine driving the Holocene extinction. The fractional reserve banking system maintains this entire facade. Commerce is already dead. Think of the fractional reserve as a hacked code that will maintain the illusion a bit longer. The total global debt is 400% the total global product. Only 3% of the commerce on Earth is tangible. 97% is digital debt. There are no wealthy people anymore. The wealthy only possess digital debt. Fact 2, if you extrapolate the increase in ocean dead zones out of the current rate, ODZs will encompass the entire planet by 2200. Given the majority of oxygen is produced in the oceans, once they are void of life, between this and deforestation, atmospheric oxygen will drop down to 5%. Unconsciousness occurs around 10%. I don't know if you meant to write 2200 PEH96, but I'd say that it's going to happen a lot faster than 2200. Fact number 3, the North Polar albedo change is why the northern jet stream has dropped to the 35th parallel. The Arctic has lost 40% of its year-round ice. The Antarctic, which represents 91% of the Earth's ice, has lost 20%. Where the topology seems similar, where it was once 4 miles thick, is only a few hundred meters. The sum global loss of permanent ice is approximately 50% between Antarctica and Greenland of the 99% global scale and irreversible. Most important fact, Earth's thermohaline circulation, which the Gulf Stream is a part of. The Gulf Stream takes 35 years to complete a cycle of turning warm water to the northern region, UK, then drops to several hundred meters, where it takes more than 30 years to return to the Gulf. Measuring surface air and water temperatures is in general 35 years behind. This is the reason the data is confusing. The air and surface water temps are 35-year-old data. What is really happening is on the ocean floor. Climate change is measured by ice loss, not air or water temperatures. At this point, the thermohaline system has slowed 20% of its deep surface speed. slowed by a factor of 5. The result will be a sudden flash of heat as the albedo changes, followed by a global deep freeze. The dense salt water drops below the cold freshwater before delivering its load of warm air to its destination. This is referred to as thermohaline collapse, and it is occurring at this very moment. This happened 600 million years ago, a global planetary freeze. Except then, the moon was close enough to cause ice tides and crush ice back into liquid water. That is not the case today. It will remain forever frozen. Okay, maybe so. The CO2 myth. Changing CO2 emissions will have no effect for 1,000 years. However, CO2 contributes a fraction of the total greenhouse effect. Half of the total greenhouse gas is purely due to animal agriculture, with nitrous oxide and methane carrying the bulk of the load. Excuse me. Edit. Someone commented here that CO2 is 80% of emissions. Correct, but nitrous oxide has 298 times the greenhouse effect of CO2. Carbon dioxide is turned back into oxygen by plants and plankton. Nitrous oxide has no such mechanism built into nature to clear it from the air. The CO2 contribution to global warming thus becomes negligible when compared to the mega production of nitrous oxide by animal agriculture. CO2 emissions are 8 times as abundant as methane, 16 times as abundant as nitrous oxide. Adjust those numbers to the respective effects as a greenhouse gas, and you get 3% for carbon dioxide, 39% for methane, and 58% for nitrous oxide. That's the end of the comment. I don't know if y'all found that interesting or not. There were quite a few comments on this. I don't know what y'all think about all those facts, but the possibility of us, flipping into an ice age or a deep freeze. Who knows? So we have, is that where we're heading? The only other person that I've, the only other person that I've really heard talk about this is Cliff High. Says something about this happening, but who knows? And then we have the solar minimum folks, the Adapt 2030 folks. But this commenter is actually talking about climate change and the thermohaline circulation, Gulf Stream breaking down, basically causing a freeze. So so basically climate change causing warming, causing a breakdown, causing flipping into a freezing situation. One can only guess how the Earth will respond to all these systems. But I imagine we're going to have a lot more problems with a flash of heat before all of this happens. Before we even get to the freeze part. Who knows how far we're going to make it past the oceans spewing out all the heat that they've been storing. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine about how this is going to play out. But anyways, I thought that was an interesting comment. I wanted to read that. Hope y'all liked it. I'm going to read this article, excuse me, from RT. Fragile. Pentagon report. Well, so, excuse me. The commenter was also talking about the economic system being on the verge of collapse. I used to follow like economic, news a lot more than I followed climate change news, or as much as I followed climate change news. I don't stay too locked into it right now, because literally for the last 3 years they've been saying the same thing, like we're about to collapse, or Deutsche Bank is about to fail. We have trillions of dollars in derivatives out there that are floating around, and the whole economic system is ready to collapse. And that just like climate change, that may very well be true. I mean, we don't know when it's going to collapse. It could be this year, next year, 5 years from now. We don't know that when the environmental system is going to collapse this year, next year, 5 years from now. You know, I'm not at the point yet of just like, you know, giving the big shrug to the world about climate change. But as far as economically, you know, like, yeah, we're on the verge of collapse. I don't know what more to say about it. I've heard the same news over and over and over again, like every single day for the last 3 years about, you know, where the economy's at, and we're still here. So, you know, who knows what the plug is going to be, you know, what the tripwire is going to be for everything to kind of collapse. We know that we're steadily getting there, and we will get there eventually, but, you know, what comes first, climate change collapse or economic collapse? And one will trigger, you know, one will exacerbate the other on some level, but I digress. Fragile, Pentagon report raises alarm that U.S. industry can't support war for much longer. Between globalization and nearly 20 years of constant warfare, the industrial part of the U.S. military-industrial complex is not looking so good, putting future wars at risk, according to new Pentagon report. The annual Industrial Capabilities Report published by the Pentagon Office of Manufacturing and Industrial-Based Policy warns that reliance on foreign-based materials combined with 20 years of intermittent conflict have put a strain on U.S. manufacturers of weapons, parts, and ammunition. While U.S. national defense demands for materials are seldom unmet, there exist risks to their supply now, and risks are anticipated in the foreseeable future, the report says, describing the two broad trends as the scarcity of materials used in new technologies in the U.S.'s growing reliance on foreign supply sources. Both U.S. economic security and national defense are at risk due to high U.S. import reliance on foreign countries who may become adversaries and cut off peacetime supply during future conflicts, the report says. And this is actually, I've heard this as a reason why Trump is actually doing the old, like, let's go back to the 1950s, you know, America, you know, being a industrial giant again. That this is one of the reasons he's doing that is because we're totally reliant on like Chinese steel or Japanese steel or Chinese steel or whatever, and all kinds of other parts made all over the world, and this is making us very, very vulnerable. So one of the reasons for pumping all this money back into the military or back into the military industrial complex is to regain our, you know, our domestic industrial capabilities in order to keep our supply chains going. Who knows? That's just a theory, but it seems to tie into what this report is actually saying. Both U.S. economic security and national defense are at risk due to high U.S. blah, blah, blah. I read that. One example is Declarane, a flame retardant used in insulation on all U.S. missile systems. The sole source of the material is the Belgian company Occidental Chemical. Worse yet, the precursor to make Declarane used to come from China, but is no longer available. So now there is no source for Declarane in the world, or dechlorane. I don't know how to pronounce it. U.S. fighter jets rely on Sidewinder and AMRAAM air-to-air missiles to dominate the skies, but what happens when they run out? The sole source of dimeryl diisocyanate, a key ingredient in the missile's propellant, has informed the Pentagon that it will be leaving the business soon, leaving the U.S. with no qualified source, according to the report. One of the biggest problems noted by the Pentagon is the lack of diversity in the industrial base. About 97% of the DoD funds for missile and munitions procurement goes to just two companies, Raytheon and Lockheed Martin. Almost all second and third tier suppliers of munitions components, 98% in both instances, are sole sources. Of particular concern to the report's authors were thermal batteries, solid rocket motors, fuses, and small turbine engines, which all rely on just one or two manufacturers. President Donald Trump has raised the Pentagon's funding in order to rebuild the depleted military and launched a crusade to revive U.S. manufacturing, but that may not be enough. We may be too far down the path to resurrect the authentic munitions industrial base, Mackenzie Eaglin of the American Enterprise Institute told Defense News. Commenting on the report, so then the question becomes, now what? With the U.S. capability to produce vital parts and materials for weapon systems and ammunition dwindling, Washington is facing the risk that a conflict with China could rely on Chinese-made parts, Defense News noted. Munitions aren't the only problem either. Maintenance has been hit just as hard by years of overuse and underfunding of industrial infrastructure, according to the report. U.S. naval shipyards, for example, have not been able to meet their maintenance needs, resulting in compounding problems. The neglect has been so severe that in fiscal years 2000 through 2016, inadequate facilities and equipment led to the maintenance delays that contributed in part to more than 1,300 lost operational days for aircraft carriers and 12,500 lost operational days for submarines. A January report by the Pentagon's Director of Operations and Testing noted that half of the F-35 stealth fighter fleet is not mission capable due to supply and maintenance problems. Lockheed Martin's futuristic fighter has a lifetime cost estimated at over $1 trillion. All right. We can't afford the military that we have. It is a behemoth, or behemoth, however you want to pronounce it. I'm going to read this article, which I don't know how I feel about this. This is from the Faster Than Expected blog. Fire and ice, the untapped fossil fuel that could save or ruin our climate, from May 31st, 2018. The U.S. Department of Energy recently launched a 6-year, $80 million project to drill core samples of methane hydrate from the Gulf of Mexico. The cost and technical challenges of mining methane hydrate mean it's a long way from being commercially viable, particularly in North America where gas and oil are relatively cheap. But Peter Flemings, a geoscientist at the University of Texas and the project's principal investigator, says that could change as the science improves. This could be analogous to shale 30 years ago. None of us thought we were going to produce oil and gas out of the shale back then. India and China are also looking into exploiting undersea reserves, while Russia and Canada focus on extracting it from beneath permafrost. You're going to have to hurry up. Russia and Canada have done a lot because they have vast Arctic territories where methane hydrate is known to exist in permafrost. Steve Holbrook, professor of geosciences at Virginia Polytechnic Institute, said they have done cutting-edge work both in understanding the reservoir and in experimenting with ways to try to produce it. Another 100 years of hydrocarbons? Methane hydrate has the potential to extend the fossil fuel age by a century or more, Richard Charter, a senior fellow with the Ocean Foundation, said. There may be more methane hydrate out there than all of the remaining oil and gas. Methane is a natural gas that contains carbon. Burning it releases less CO2 into the atmosphere than coal or oil, but emissions still contribute to climate change. Worse, methane itself is a greenhouse gas that's much stronger than CO2. That's all I'm going to read of that article, but I will link it below. That's all we need is to extend the life of fossil fuels on this planet, or the life of the use of fossil fuels on this planet. We don't need that, and this is like just stupidity on all levels. Because the actual mining of it, what is that going to, what kind of damage is that going to do? Then you got, then you're going to burn it. Then you're going to, whatever. You're going to extract it, you're going to process it, you're going to burn it. All of that is going to just create more havoc, which we do not need. I don't know if I have anything like super juicy for you tonight. But this is an interesting read for a little while anyways. Chilean villagers claim British appetite for avocados is draining the region dry. UK demand for fruit increased by 27% last year alone, prompting accusations that growers are illegally diverting rivers and leaving locals without water. British supermarkets are selling thousands of tons, tonnes, tons of avocados produced in a Chilean region where villagers claim vast amounts of water are being diverted, resulting in a drought. Major UK supermarkets, including Tesco, Morrison's, Waitrose, Aldi, and Lidl, source avocados from Chile's largest avocado-producing province, Petorca, where water rights have been violated. In Petorca, many avocado plantations install illegal pipes and wells in order to divert water from rivers to irrigate their crops. As a result, villagers say rivers have dried up and groundwater levels have fallen, causing a regional drought. Residents are now obliged to use often contaminated water delivered by trucks. Veronica Vilches, an activist who is responsible for one of the rural potable water systems, says, "People get sick because of the drought. We find ourselves having to choose between cooking and washing, going to the bathroom in holes in the ground or in plastic bags, while big agribusinesses earn more and more." In 2011, Chile's water authority, the Dirección General de Aguas, published an investigation conducted by satellite that showed at least 65 illegal underground channels bringing water from the rivers to the private plantations. Some of the big agribusinesses have been convicted for unauthorized water use and water misappropriation. The British Retail Consortium, which represents the major supermarkets, said the stores had been made aware of the allegations. A spokesperson said, "Our members have been made aware of the allegations made regarding production practices of avocados in the Petorca region of Chile. Retailers will work with other suppliers to investigate this." We're going to get to the bottom of this, or not. Safeguarding the welfare of people and communities and supply chains is fundamental to our sourcing practices as a responsible industry. Hardy har har. Little said most of the avocados come from a supplier whose practices they trusted, but the store said it would investigate to see if any of its fruits came from Petorca. A spokesman said, "While not all of our avocados are sourced from the Chilean province of Petorca, those that do come from this region are sourced from Rainforest Alliance certified producers. Nevertheless, we were concerned to learn that these allegations and will therefore be investigating the matter with both our supplier and the Rainforest Alliance. 2,000 liters of water are needed to produce just 1 kilo of avocados, 4 times the amount needed to produce a kilo of oranges, and 10 times what is needed to produce a kilo of tomatoes, according to the Water Footprint Network. In Petorca, the required amount is even larger. This is a very dry region where it almost never rains, so every cultivated hectare requires 100,000 liters of water per day, an amount equivalent to what 1,000 people would use in a day," said Rodrigo Mondaca, an agronomist, and activist with the environmental organization Modatima. More than 17,000 tons of avocados were imported to the UK from Chile in 2016, and the demand for avocados in the United Kingdom has gone up 27% just the last year, figures show. Some 67% of those avocados come from the Valparaiso region where Petorca is located. All right, that's all I'm going to read of that article. Because, because people in the first world countries get to have whatever they want. That's why. People who have money in China get to, buy whatever they want, rhino horn or, whatever delicacies, fish that they're not supposed to eat, and, whatever it is that they're, things that make them virile. If you have money, you basically get to have whatever you want. You get to destroy whatever resources and whatever, whatever you need to have. Yeah, you have Flint, Michigan without clean water, and Nestle gets to bottle water from springs, all day long. Gets to take water from sources close by, with impunity. Like, go ahead, here's your water, Nestle. And meanwhile, people who depend on clean water to live in the United States of America can't have it. People who live in Chile can't have clean water or enough water to do their daily living, because people in the UK need avocados, for Christ's sake. This is the madness. The madness that is our entitlement as human beings. Because we want it, we must have it. Because we can get it, that means that it's totally fine for us to take it. Lastly, I'm going to just cover kind of an interesting website or blog somebody sent me about an organization called We Don't Have Time. Obviously about climate change. Our manifest: the earth is warming, severely disrupting the conditions for life and society. This process is not a distant possibility that future leaders in technology can take care of. We own this problem, and we need to solve it now. We are in serious danger. Pollution and overuse of resources pose a serious threat to life and civilization on Earth. Climate change is caused by human activities, for example, deforestation, energy production, housing, food production, and transportation. The heat-related deaths, devastating storms, floods, wildfires, droughts, and rising sea levels that we now experience are the direct consequences of climate change. The indirect consequences are harder to measure, but are no less severe. Famine, war, and mass migration, social unrest, droughts, and more. Climate change is killing us. Moreover, climate change, pollution, and overuse of ecological resources cause mass extinction of living organisms. We humans are responsible for an ongoing biological annihilation. We are depleting our natural resources and, as a result, putting our ecosystems under severe strain, aside from making life on Earth poorer and less diverse. This is a global major threat to food production and human prosperity and health. If this doesn't stop, we may face a collapsing global society. The effects of climate change and ecological disruption constitute an existential threat to the societies we have inherited, to human civilization as such. Mobilization. The pressures of changing climate and the disruptions to our ecosystems are unevenly distributed. Do Californian wildfires, the Cape Town water drought, or floods in Bangladesh concern you? Morally, they do. Greenhouse gases and pollution do not respect national borders, but they concern you on a personal level too. The pressure will eventually mount on all of us. Every citizen, every state, every organization in the world needs to deal with and prepare for an inhospitable and very insecure world. There is no escape from this challenge. We created it, and we must face it together. The world must mobilize. Awareness. We may soon reach a tipping point when the effects of climate change become self-fulfilling and irreversible. We have to reach an awareness tipping point, before we reach the climate tipping point. Awareness leads to action. Politicians, corporate leaders, influencers, media organizers, Countries and international organizations must act forcefully to combat climate change. We must stop emissions and find the best solutions for a sustainable future together. The world needs to make implementing the Paris Agreement to limit global warming the #1 priority. Or how about implementing something that actually makes sense or works? But, we'll go with that for now. We don't have time. We are beyond the question of whether climate change and overuse of ecological resources lead to catastrophe or not. The question is about the proportion of the catastrophe and whether or not it will lead to a complete breakdown of our societies. The scientific community has issued a unanimous warning to humanity about the dangers of climate change. To those who deny this warning, we say, to include you in the conversation would be a waste of time. Every hour spent debating a science denier is about an hour less spent finding solutions to our problems. This affects us here and now. Climate change is happening. Species are becoming extinct at an alarming rate. Human lives are and will be lost. We must find solutions. We must reverse course now. So we are pressed for time. This is encapsulated in our name. That also is our motto. We don't have time to wait, but we must act now. What we do, it's all about what we can do together. We must all, as citizens on Earth, step up and come together. Let's come closer. We believe that the fastest, most efficient way to do this is by modern technology and communication. Our goal is therefore to build the world's largest social media platform focused on climate change, allowing our members, you, me, my friends, your friends, our families, all and everyone, to be the change by the power of many. Because we don't have time to wait, we need to act now to fight the climate crisis. Why should you join us? We must come together to implement the Paris Agreement, put pressure on governments, on companies, and change our own way of living, lead by example to solve the climate crisis. The political and economic elites are clearly not taking climate change and the threat against our ecosystem seriously enough. Or we wouldn't be where we are today. We can't trust that political leaders, government officials, and financial stakeholders will do enough by themselves. The challenge is too great. The issue is too important. The catastrophe too imminent. We believe that real change only will come if a movement of ordinary citizens from all over the world demands change. We must push them, ourselves and our peers, to do much more and faster. If a large number of ordinary citizens come together to share information, policy proposals, solutions, and demands for action, change will happen. You can be the change. Alrighty, so if you all are interested in this organization, I'm going to put the link and you all can check them out. See if it is something that you want to be a part of. Seems pretty cool. They ask you for your email. Here, I'm going to put my email in here right now. Because what the heck? I'm down. All right. I'm in. Maybe y'all want to jump in. I don't know. I feel like any path forward is a way forward. We can bumble, stumble, flail along toward some kind of answer, at the very least. So there you go. That's all I have for you tonight. Thank you for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to donate to this channel, you can do so at the links below. Thank you always for your comments, for your participation, for your kindness. I am going to say to the climate, to the deniers that want to jump on here and spew stuff, like in accordance with what I just read, like I don't have time for you guys. So a lot of the people that follow this channel do a good job of ignoring the comments from the skeptics and the deniers and the whatnots. Look, if you have something, if you have concrete evidence, give me the evidence right away. Don't ever jump on here and go like, this is stupid, it's just false. And you know what? I'm going to delete your comment and I'm going to block you. That's what's going to happen from here on out. y'all are getting blocked. You're just not even going to get any space on this channel because we don't have time for your crap. I don't have time for your crap. It's just, you're getting in the way. You're just getting in the way. So it will just not be tolerated anymore. You're not going to get in the way. And like, I don't know. If I, it's like, there are days when I feel like if I meet somebody in person that's a climate denier, I almost want to punch him in the face. But I'm not that dude, but I'm not going to indulge any conversations about it or, debates. There is no debate. It is happening. It's what is happening. It's right in front of your eyes. If you can't see that, there's something very, very wrong with you. So you will not be tolerated. That's all I have. Thanks again. I hope to be back very soon with another video. Until next time, peace.